You know, for decades, we've been obsessed with this one huge question about AI. Can it think? But what if we've been asking the wrong question all along? What if the real story of conversational AI isn't about creating intelligence, but about mastering the art of the magic trick?
So here's the big idea for this explainer. What if the ultimate test for machine intelligence was actually just a really, really good illusion? We're going to pull back the curtain on the famous Turing test and look at it as a piece of theater. And we'll see how this long history of, well, deception has led directly to the AI we have today. From the very first chatbots to those voices on the phone that sound just a little too real.
Okay, so the imitation game. You know, every great magic trick has three parts. The first part is called the pledge. The magician shows you something ordinary. For our story, that pledge came from Alan Turing, all the way back in 1950. See, Turing was a genius, but he was also incredibly practical. He looked at the question, can machines think, and realized, that's a bottomless pit. Philosophers could argue about that forever. So he just sidestepped the whole debate. He said, forget about thinking. Let's create a test based on something we can actually see and measure. Can a machine act like a human? Can it perform the part? And look at how this whole thing is set up. It's pure stagecraft. You've got three players, right? But they're all in separate rooms. The interrogator can only talk to the other two through text messages, so no voice, no face, none of the usual human giveaways. And the goal for the machine is crystal clear. Fool the human judge. It doesn't have to be smart, it just has to seem smart enough to pass. The name of the game is deception. So let's look at how this plays out. The human gives a pretty standard answer, right? Coffee and toast. But look at the machine's response. It's better, isn't it? It's more human. I was in such a rush I can't even remember. A little joke about its brain not working. This isn't just spitting out facts. This is playing a character. It's using conversational tricks, feigning memory loss, being relatable. This is about learning the script of what it means to be human, not actually being one. So, that was the pledge. Now comes the second act of our magic trick, the turn. This is where the magician takes something ordinary and makes it do something extraordinary. And the very first performance of this trick happened in the 1960s with a program called ELIZA. And let me tell you, ELIZA wasn't intelligent at all. But what it revealed was absolutely fascinating.
So what was ELIZA? Think of it less like a brain and more like a clever mirror. Seriously, it had zero understanding of what you were saying. No concept of emotion or sadness or anything. All it did was follow a very simple set of rules to parrot your own words back at you. But in doing so, it created this powerful illusion that it was actually listening, that it actually cared.
Okay, so here's how it worked. A person would sit down and type something, maybe something personal, like they were talking to a therapist. Let's say they type, I am feeling sad. And ELIZA would come back with this. It would see the keywords I am, and it had a rule, turn that into a question. Why do you say you are feeling sad? It doesn't know what sad means. It's just a simple parlor trick, a linguistic rule. But for the person on the other side, wow, it feels like someone is actually listening. It feels like the start of a real conversation.
And this is where things get really interesting. Because ELIZA's success wasn't about the technology. It revealed something deep about us. They even gave it a name, the ELIZA effect. It's our very human tendency to project intelligence and emotion onto something, even when we know it's just a dumb machine following rules. We're the ones who fill in the blanks. We want to believe in the magic. You could say, we're the perfect audience for this kind of trick.
So, for a long, long time, these AI illusions were basically simple card tricks. Fun, but you could see how they were done. And then technology caught up. That clever little mirror that was ELIZA, it evolved. It became something else entirely. A perfect impersonator. A performer so good, you'd never even know you were watching a show.
This brings us to 2018. Google gets on stage and shows off something called Duplex. It's an AI that can make phone calls for you. Book a haircut, make a dinner reservation, and the demo they played, it was stunning. The AI's performance was so flawless, so utterly human, that the person on the other end of the phone had absolutely no clue they were talking to a machine.
So how did they pull it off? How was the trick so perfect? Well, a couple of things. For one, it could actually handle a real, messy human conversation with all its interruptions and sidetracks. But the real genius, the masterstroke, was in the voice itself. It was programmed to use all those little vocal tics we have, the ums and ahs, and those little pauses when we're thinking. These are the sounds of being human, And Google's AI nailed them. It was a perfect vocal impersonation.
Now, as you can imagine, this demo was a huge technical achievement, but it also kicked off a massive ethical debate almost instantly. Why? Because the AI didn't announce it was an AI, it was actively deceiving people. On one side, you had people saying this is dangerous, it could be used for scams, it erodes trust, and fundamentally, it's just wrong to trick people. On the other side, supporters argued, hey, for simple tasks like booking an appointment, who cares? Plus, think of the benefits for people with disabilities. The debate got pretty heated.
And that whole controversy around Duplex really forced everyone to stop and think. What is the goal here? Which brings us to the third and final act of our magic trick, the prestige. This is the moment the magician finally shows you how it was all done. We get to look behind the curtain and understand why this incredible illusion isn't actually magic.
So here's the big reveal. The main problem with the Turing test, the thing that critics have been saying for years, is that it's not a test of intelligence. It never was. It's a test of deception. It rewards a machine for being a good actor, a good impersonator, not for actually understanding anything. It doesn't test for reason or consciousness or genuine thought. It just tests for a convincing performance.
There's a famous thought experiment that explains this perfectly. It's called the Chinese room. Imagine you're locked in a room. You don't speak or read a single word of Chinese. But in that room, you have a giant, incredibly detailed rulebook. Now, someone from the outside slides a piece of paper with Chinese characters on it under the door. You look at the shapes, find them in your rulebook, and the book tells you exactly which characters to write down on another piece of paper and slide back out.
Now, to the person on the outside, it looks like they're having a fluent conversation in Chinese with you. Your answers are perfect, but you, inside that room, you have zero comprehension. You're just matching symbols. You're a processor, following instructions. And that's the whole point. A correct output, a perfect performance, is not proof of a mind. It's just proof that you have a very, very good rulebook.
And really, that's just the biggest flaw. The Turing test has a bunch of other problems too. For starters, it's totally biased towards human intelligence. What about other kinds of intelligence? It also encourages developers to build in cheap tricks instead of focusing on genuine intellect. And on top of all that, the result completely depends on how clever or maybe how gullible the human judge is. It's just not a good or reliable way to measure anything real. So, if imitation is a dead end, if it's flawed and maybe even a little dangerous, where do we go from here? Well, thankfully, the whole conversation around AI design is starting to shift. We're slowly moving away from asking, can it fool us, and toward a much better question, one that's built around a completely different goal: authenticity.
Now, when we say authenticity, we don't mean an AI that has real feelings. No, it means an AI that is honest about what it is, a tool. An authentic AI doesn't pretend it had a fun weekend. It tells you, I'm a language model, how can I help? It's about transparency, and that's how you build trust. It manages our expectations, and it lets us focus on building really useful tools that help us, instead of just impressive actors that trick us.
So, we've kind of come full circle, haven't we? This whole long chase to beat the Turing test has taught us something really important. A perfect imitation is not the same thing as a real mind. A perfect performance isn't the same as a real connection. But it does leave us with one final, tricky question that we all have to grapple with now. In a world where these digital illusions are becoming flawless, is it okay to trick people just because the trick is perfect?